open statement. I hereby announce pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, the adequate notice of this meeting has been provided on January 18, 2018 to the Edinburgh Park Press, Independent, Two Rivers, the Two Rivers Times. Notice has also been posted at the entrance of Town Hall or pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Pledge allegiance. Right behind you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence, please.
Record, it wasn't posted in the front of the building, but right here.
No, it's not the notice of the meeting, it's the annual notice with all the meeting dates is posted downstairs.
Right.
Was it? Okay, got it, thank you.
At least it was at one point in the
At one
beginning of the
point,
year.
yeah.
If somebody stole it, we have no idea.
Hey,
Well, I've watched a couple of people come in and take like the meeting date, the list with the
Yeah, they
meetings,
wanna
thinking it's
know.
for, just,
they take it down?
they take it because they're gonna use it, almost like, when you used to go to the grocery store and they had stuff on the bulletin board you could pick up. Yeah.
Nowadays,
You don't have that anymore, but,
nowadays it's on the website.
yeah.
Or it should be. Yeah, it should be.
Holmdel Environmental Committee study on open space. Look at additional properties in addition to existing township trails as part of the development of the Greenway program.
Why don't we do the other one first, it's quicker.
Oh, the new house?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually, we discussed this probably about 2 or 3 months ago. I think it was August or something.
We said that we had no.
It basically was the existing office building that had burned down for the fire, I guess, I don't know, might have even been in the springtime.
We're talking about the,
Yeah, the 51 Main Street. So what
Okay.
happened was they had submitted plans, and they had gone ahead and they were going to schedule them for a meeting in December, but they decided that maybe it makes sense to go ahead and, instead of coming in December, wait till January, revise their plans, address some of the things in our letter, go to the county, find out what the county comments are, and try to clean things up before they come to the board. So these are revised plans, which essentially the only change from what you saw was that the driveway now is widened to 24 feet at the entrance, which is a county requirement. We got no wetlands, no steep slopes, we got no stream corridor buffer,
And the county approved it.
and the county has approved it. So, I mean, it's really not much of a change for you guys. You had no comments before.
there's nothing
Yep.
there for us.
There was supposed to be, some people here came because they thought there was a discussion on the land swap. But I don't see that on the agenda. Was that part of this open space discussion or not?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe we can make it.
Why don't we make
it part of it.
Well, I thought I would do is put in front of the committee all the open space targets. And so I presented the maps of the properties as outlined in the attachment to the email I sent you. And I also included a map of the proposed Greenway additions to the Greenway Trail. The trails that take from Horsebrook up through above Middle Road from the Route 35 up north, and also the extension of the, you have it.
Well, this is the old map, which has a lot of that on it, but
Okay.
go ahead.
And also the trail around, the bypass around the park, Cross Farm Park, and also the trail that goes across behind Route 34.
Apologize.
Hey, Mike.
I'm sorry. My mother's back in hospital, so
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
it happens. Where are we?
We did the new house application, we're
Oh.
now on the rest of it. We went out of order.
Okay.
So we just started on the open space.
What was the discussion?
On the new house? There's no environmental
No,
area,
nothing.
so it's just a revised plan, and we had no concerns before, so
Okay.
kind of.
Hi, Chris.
Well, taking up what Mike said, that the Open Space Environmental Commission has to decide whether or not the jurisdiction will be under the open space program that was under development. It's going to come under the auspices of the Environmental Commission.
Correct. Well, I spoke to the mayor about that, and I think there, if I remember what he said correctly, there was an open space advisory council that was put together. But let me double check on that.
No, that was a farmland
It was
preservation.
a farmland preservation, okay.
They had to establish a
Separate, yeah,
farmland
farmland
in order to be
okay.
eligible to get state funding.
Right, okay.
Well, I think you ought to look into, I mean, the current rules, because
Yeah.
rules change.
Yes,
in
right. And-
regard to both.
Right, and there was, a lot of things have been merged into one group, so.
I mean, in the past, it was to be eligible for open space grants,
Right.
for Green Acres or similar property acquisition, you had to have an open space committee
Right.
that was with certain parameters.
Or you had it delegated to like an environmental
Or
commission. There had to
that,
be
I
a group.
don't know what the current rules are.
Haven't changed in 10 years.
Okay, but, and similarly with regard to agricultural land preservation, you need to have a farmland committee. To what extent those can be merged or not?
Yeah, the farmland committee, I think there was some minimum number of farmers that had to be
Right.
participants.
Yes, right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Or,
So,
I don't know, farmers may not be the right term.
People who farm their land.
Yeah, well, it had something to do with
People
farming,
whose-
they had to,
People whose land is farmed.
yeah, I don't know what
yes,
the,
yes. So I mean, at a minimum, one ought to understand what the official rules on what you have to have to get those monies, because you certainly want to try to get those monies if you're trying to preserve
You're
land.
what's called the Planning Incentive Grant Community, it's PIG for short, but, meaning that you have an open space tax, you're collecting it, and you were declared eligible day one, that you established that you remain eligible.
Mhm.
And so whenever you want to apply for funding, you can apply with specificity on a particular project, or you can just say, I want X amount of money, and there's going to be another grant application, I think, in February or
yeah,
something
you know.
like that. So you might want to apply, but I'm not so sure you need the open space group once you've established. But you should have a group
You should
that
have, yeah.
determines what makes sense to do.
No, of course, I know there's, obviously last night, we just the town committee voted to settle with our affordable housing obligation with certain properties in the north end of town. And there's a desire to now start looking at properties to preserve, and how we go about doing that, and those discussions have to be had sooner than later.
Right.
I know there's, Chris had forwarded me a bunch of properties to look at. Now, how you delegate which one's the best one to,
There was an analysis done on the letter submitted to the Township Committee for the 2008 report,
okay.
which prioritized, gave the criteria by which they should select the property. And I sent you a copy of that.
Yes, I think
It didn't really prioritize.
Dave.
It's this, yeah,
which one, I have to look at it, I just haven't been reading so much recently.
I think it just lists the things.
Yes.
Oh, I have more. This is just funny.
But given that's out of date and things
Yeah,
have
this has
changed,
changed.
we probably should use that as a basis to start from.
That's what I thought.
Completing the reminiscent Brook Greenway. That was a lot of fun. If I don't know if I remember, I told you, Ralph, there was when the master plan was done, I guess it was back then in 1990, or when there was one big greenway.
04.
Yeah, before. This.
2004.
Yeah, well, just right through here, this part of the reminiscent, the greenway trail right through here, that's on New Jersey
Correct.
property. There was, I think it was Larry Fink who did it, who put a bunch of trail signs and put a trail through there.
There's no trail signs.
There were trail signs there.
Well, okay.
Not markers, but there were signs indicating which fauna and trees or where.
That was not done by Larry or the Environmental Commission. It goes back further into the early 90s.
Okay.
The Art Center itself developed a nature trail.
They don't want anybody on that property. And I have that in writing from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Board
Even
of
though it's
Commissioners.
public land.
They do not want anybody there.
How can you do that?
That's the right question.
They do not want any, because there was, years ago, we had the Eagle Scout come and wanted to do a trail improvement back there, because it was all disheveled. And they denied they're like, no, you can't work back there.
How long ago was that?
I want to say this is 2013, 2014.
Not that
Yeah, because the nature trail goes back to the 80s or 90s. And the Art Center did it and welcomed people to come walk through their property. This map, that's from '04. And then we started doing the end-to-end walks, probably was in like 98 or 99. Larry or somebody would get explicit permission from the state to walk through it. And after it became routine and it became more bureaucratic, we stopped worrying about it. And it's public land, my gosh.
So let me, Chris.
We've walked it numerous times since.
Yeah, no, I've walked it too. We've walked it plenty of times with the scouts, and
Yeah.
they don't want anybody back there.
Why don't we do this? Larry works for the DEP Green Acres program now.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you have him try again to get permission
It's state property. It has to be approved by the board.
by the state board?
And I also know, because of my involvement with the first aid, that there's been, how do I say this politely, there's been several incidents on the property during concerts. That have, and then in those years, 2012, I think it was 2011, there were some serious incidents that occurred, that the state police do not want anybody back there. And they don't want to have to patrol back there, they don't want to have to be responsible for anything back there. And they told whomever the commanding officer here is at the state police barracks, basically said, we don't want anybody back there.
So is that trail, or was that trail on the perimeter of the property?
Right down the center.
Right in the middle.
Oh, well, how about moving it to the
Well,
the perimeter?
It goes wrong, yeah.
You can't accomplish it with going through on the perimeter, because effectively, it started at the high point, which is the top of the hill at Phillips Park,
Mhm.
near where the antennas are, and which is the east-west ridge that is the dividing line between the Raritan drainage basin and the basin going to the Swimming River Reservoir. And so the concept was, let's hike walk along the Reminiscent from its source,
Yeah.
which is just over the ridge on the Art Center property. So you cross the ridge onto Art Center property, you could find some wet puddles, literally, just a puddle, and then as you go down, it gets wider and wider, and then it becomes a stream, and ends up going into the reservoir as a reasonable sized stream. So there are various ways that one has walked around in there since, but
You're
Okay.
saying you can't do the perimeter. What I
The
was
perimeter
driving
would
at-
not accomplish that.
What I was driving at.
Because the
if it was
perimeter's
a
the back of a
perimeter,
bunch of
then
houses.
They could deed that property that they don't use anyway to township, and then you have responsibility.
All I asked was for permission for us to do trail work.
And you got a
I
blank.
got a big no.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to build anything, I wasn't trying to construct something, I wasn't trying to remove trees, I wasn't trying to plant anything, we were just trying to get the proper permissions for the Scout to do his Eagle project, which was a noble project.
Sure.
And it was denied, which, and then, you know, there was no other way to go. It was, the board.
Bureaucracy is bureaucracy.
Well, there's always Phil Murphy.
That's true. It is a different administration. You never know. You might might try. You can't hurt to try again under this administration. You never know. That's very true. But okay, so this was done in 2008. The list of properties
Yeah,
that were, and these are in priority order, like number
No.
one. No.
Well, look, having been involved
Yeah,
as
no,
a
I know,
member of
you
the
know.
HEC back at that time, in the 90s, those 3 greenway studies were done, which the books of which exist.
I have copies of.
I had, yeah.
A
And
little
that
dusty,
then
but-
led at the, I don't remember if it was part at about a time of one of the open space bond issues or whatever, but it was a sense that one needs to do an inventory. What open space do we have? What may be desirable to preserve? And that led to the Environmental Commission doing this in about '99.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And the focus there is, it primarily looked at larger properties. The threshold, I think, was about 5 acres. Just to make a list of what are all the undeveloped properties, period. And that led to a lot of these pictures of where are they, what's the condition of them. And then in about 2001, the first OSAC got formed because they were looking at that time for significant funding to help acquire some of that. And the OSAC put together the predecessor to that list.
Okay.
And the last page, if it's, and I think it's the same thing, yes. We sat around and we debated, how do you figure out what should go on the list? And you need to have some criteria. And that last page lists the criteria that were used. Is this property suitable as farmland? Is it part of a trail network? Is it useful for athletics? I don't know, there were half a dozen different criteria, and those were applied to all of the properties. And then the list got created, and is simply in alphabetical order by owner, at least the owner at the time. And the right-hand column lists under what criteria this property belongs on the list. So is it useful for green acres? Is it useful for trails? Whatever.
I'm looking
And there was
at,
no prioritization done
Okay.
intentionally.
okay, well, I'm looking at it I look at this list, and I'm looking at properties to try and build almost like a hypothetical wall. I'm trying to stop development. And I'm looking at this as where are people, what farms, what property owners are trying to build, want to build, and are looking to build additional
Now, other
multi-story homes.
criteria,
But wait, so there's, I look at this list, I don't see, for example, I don't see the Pappas one on here. I don't see Potter's Farm on here.
It might be under different names, that's
Maybe
why.
under the names, because I
Yeah.
don't see those names.
you're probably correct.
Potter's been around forever, his name should be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's fine.
they're, in, not every property that is bigger than 5 acres that's open space, that could be open space was on that property, on that list. There was some judgment used. At some point in time, there was some politics that intervened. And
Of course.
and when the initial list was created, letters were sent out to people, and they could respond if they wanted to be on it or not. And if they said they didn't want to be on it, then they were not on it. So, that could be why certain properties are not on the list. Originally, the Callens did not want to be on it and weren't.
I mean, like I see Onrush Farms on there, but nobody's building on Onrush Farm, nobody's
No.
putting houses there.
Correct. So there was some political and owner input as to what isn't on the list. I mean, other things that go with what you're saying was that in the case of farmland, for example, one of
You
the
see them? No.
state requirements is that you have a nexus of farms so that they can support each other. You know, random 10 acres doesn't make for good farming. But if you have a cluster of properties.
Well, that's the ideal. They made an exception with Callan, which is
Sure.
staying alone.
Correct. But those are some of the thoughts that went into it. And then that got updated every year till you say '08.
Yes.
And so it hasn't been updated in 10 years. The annual updates generally consisted of removing properties which were being developed and hence were no longer vacant or had been acquired. You know, originally Chase property was on it.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, yeah.
got preserved and so fell off.
I see two things needed. One is give us the authority, the EC authority to do that, and that has to come from the township committee.
Right, yeah.
And secondly, some guidance on what you want.
I know what I'd like to see. I'd like this, there's certain farms in the areas that have access to sewers that I'd like to protect and I'd like to preserve somehow and try and work aggressively to do that. I will say that I know, having been in the closed room meetings, that there's, that there are other properties and other farms on this list that do not have access to sewers, that do want to build and do have a desire to, not just large multi-million-dollar homes, but townhomes. And they feel that they can work through the court system and bypass Holmdel Township to get what they want. And that's something else we'll have to consider. That's gonna be, the 2025 round is gonna be very
Townhomes
interesting.
without sewers?
They feel they can bring them in from other locations, other towns. And,
Has to be the same watershed though, right?
yeah, well, no, there's, I saw one plan, they wanna bring it in all the way from Route 9.
Bayshore has an exclusive.
Well, I see some of these guys think they can work through and bypass all that and work strictly through the courts. And bypass all the current sewer authorities and who has jurisdiction over what.
And this is aside from builder's remedy.
This is pie in the sky stuff, but they're talking
So
about it.
presumably somebody else they're trying to have somebody else pay.
Correct.
Because doing some of those things are not
No, you're
inexpensive.
talking, you're talking millions and millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and and I've been upfront about, I'm very concerned about Potters. Very concerned about Potters and Pappas, and I wanna see those farms protected.
Potter is not eligible for farming money, for SADC or county money.
Why?
So you have, because it's not considered
What's it
It's a
farm?
retail.
prime agriculture.
Yeah.
land.
Well, he's got goats.
Yeah.
Goats will eat
You got,
anything.
you have to
You got
preserve-
cows?
preserve it on your own with cash of your own, then you can do it. And it can remain a farm, but you can't get state funding for it.
The other
We've
thing,
already tried.
But he's a farm.
Doesn't matter, they look at
Yeah.
soils and a bunch of other criteria.
the other thing with
Coverage.
Potter, what's the state of
The amount of
114?
woodland, all that.
Meaning,
There have been plans over the decades
yeah.
of turning 114 into a more complete clover leaf.
Yes.
And doing that by using part of Potter's farm.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know where that stands. And I don't know where that
Because that
ranks
takes
on,
about 5
this
acres out of his 10.
Yeah, I know, and I
Wow.
don't think it's necessary given current traffic conditions.
I
Yeah.
can't speak to
But,
that.
now Val Works is up and running, maybe
Yeah,
that
that
could create the
could,
need.
that could change.
Yep.
Unless you build a new intersection by your state police.
Well, no, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, good.
I just would like to see, those would be my top two priorities right now, because,
And just so you know, that, we've pursued it and state funding won't, so you're gonna have to fund it on your own.
and how much is that?
Well, it depends on its highest and best use based on the current zoning. What is it, 2 acre lots?
It's in the R40A zone, so
So
it's
it's 1 acre?
1 acre basically.
1 acre.
One acre?
For
It's got a
general
lot of
purposes.
road frontage, and it even has the other street that backs up to it.
Yeah,
behind.
that's,
So, I mean,
Ballpark.
someday, we could do this for you if you wanna hire my organization, we can do, no, I don't care about that.
no, I'm just saying.
We could do an appraisal and then you decide whether you can afford it. Nobody else will help you pay. You can apply to the county for an open space grant, it's
Mhm.
$250,000. And, we participated in my organization, but the bulk of the funding would have to come from the township.
All right, we'll have to look at the numbers.
But if you use it as open space, you can continue in ag use, right?
Mhm.
But you won't get SADC, State Agricultural Development Committee monies, but you can get Green Acres monies. So let's say the property costs you $1 million, and you would get a 50% grant from Green Acres, and they give you $500,000. I'm making these numbers up, and you would have to.
Talking- More likely talking 3 or 4 times that much.
Yeah, I know, I'm just.
Yeah, but most of those grants are capped out, like county open spaces, a
Yeah.
maximum of 250.
750. No, county's 750 every year.
The-
No,
for the-
no.
the
I'm
town
sorry.
is 750.
The Green Acres grant to the county is 750. The county grant to municipality is 250.
Yes.
Yes.
What about Pappas?
That, we've had discussions with the county ag person, Harriet Honigfeld,
Okay,
and there's a lot of woods there.
yeah,
So if you cut out the woods and you fund that with Green Acres, like you did with Ethnic Nurseries,
Mhm.
then there's enough ag there that SADC would participate. It's a percentage game,
yeah.
not a
Yeah, Potter is
quantity.
18 acres.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's more than 10.
Yeah, it's 18, this is 18, well, plus 1, 19.
Yeah, but that might be prior to the acquisitions for the realignment of the intersection,
Correct.
because the numbers changed.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think? I know you'd like to do them all at once, but
I'd like to preserve.
I do too.
Potters and Pappas?
Potters is.
But what other areas do you think would be best suited to defend the town or prepare the town for 2025?
Route 35?
Well, that's already, well, in the northern part of town.
Yeah,
Well, there are 2 clusters on 35.
yeah.
Which ones? So that's the,
Granado and then the one behind Coles.
Coles next to.
he wants to
Dearborn.
build there.
Granado.
The one back behind Coles.
Well, there's multiple owners.
Yeah.
That one, there's multiple pieces of property and there's multiple owners.
Right.
Because it's also where the firework, no, not the fireworks, the firewood.
Firewood. I've had interesting talks with him. He's been approached by Amazon to sell the property to put. Amazon is looking to put retail stores in on the 35 corridor, and they're
Interesting.
yeah, they want to put retail, and he's holding out. So I don't know. I mean, that was a property we were looking to try and preserve, but I don't think he's selling anytime soon.
And how about the corner, or catty corner from Dearborn, that front?
That's already sold. That's been
But is that zone commercial, isn't it?
yes, commercially
So
sold.
no problem
What,
there.
so the 2 buildings that are there, you say that's sold?
And the farm.
Yeah, because the farm, that was Tony Granado. But
Okay.
he apparently died last year.
Yeah,
or earlier
yes,
this year.
and they bought the whole they bought the commercial building and the old schoolhouse.
Oh, the schoolhouse as
That's
well.
part of it, yeah.
Yeah, the owner of the schoolhouse, they had to find the descendant in Ohio,
To get
For
rid of
Granado or for the
the
schoolhouse?
schoolhouse.
They're still around.
That's not what I was told. I was told they were, I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong.
But is
Well,
that-
my son worked for them,
Okay,
Nippus, Paul Nippus, and Paul died, but his daughter was involved with their business and his wife. And I think Jenny talked to the wife this year.
I don't know, I was told they had to find somebody in Ohio to find out who it was,
Well,
but they all.
But you're not concerned about that property?
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna preserve that. I mean, the
Well,
people
it's
that live
commercial.
there,
Why would you?
It's
do
covered,
it?
yeah.
it's commercial. I mean, I know the people that live on Twin Brooks behind that development back there, they don't wanna see anything come in. If anything did come in, they would, the people that live back there, and I've spoken to them, they would rather see housing, like, they would like to see another Village Grand or Cedar Village be built there rather than a commercial building, and we don't have,
You know,
we did, I will say this, we did, turn down politely. There was one of these mega gas stations, wanted to come in with, like, with 18
wow,
pumps.
wow.
Oh,
One of those-
quick check?
Yeah, like a quick check, but it wasn't quick check, it was
Speedway,
Speedway,
yeah.
but it was a big one.
Raceway, yeah.
They wanted to come in and put a mega gas station there, and we were like, that there was no appetite to even entertain it for zoning, and we were like,
Well,
what?
you're saying that that whole cluster, the 2 office buildings plus the school and the farm are all now in one ownership?
They're all in one ownership, and my understanding was that they were looking for tenants to secure loans to build. So in other words,
Yeah,
they're
because-
looking to put like another grove there.
Because, again, back, this was probably 15 years ago, when we looked at the zoning for that area, one of the concerns was traffic.
Yeah.
And because of the way the properties were splintered, traffic was a mess. But if you could combine them and have fewer entrances, one from 35 and one from Union Avenue, and an internal traffic within the property, you could make it much more sensible.
Right.
And combine how all of that property works together.
Well, it has a lot of frontage, so you could do a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, but,
And since when isn't traffic a mess on anywhere on 35?
yeah, but the fewer entrances, if you have multiple entrances and exits the way you do right now, getting to those office buildings, getting to the Centerville School, it's more difficult than if you can combine them.
Planning will figure that out when they come before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and the property behind Coles, that was one of the properties that where they wanted, that we rejected, because they wanted to put a 5-story building there. And it was gonna be one of these long buildings that went all the way back, and I was like, no, where do you have 5-story buildings in town? You can't do
Was
that.
that for residential?
It was residential,
But it was for affordable housing.
yes. And there were, and it's right up against wetlands. It was like, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was.
Yeah, because that backs up the Hazlet.
Yeah, it backs right up to Hazlet, and they have that
Park.
drainage area there too. Remember that? Did you see that plan? I don't know if you saw it. There was a whole thing. There was this long I saw the plans. I'm like, oh dear heavens.
Hazlet didn't care when they put in the second hotel there.
Well, no, yeah, that
Comes around, goes around. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
no, I
record
know,
that.
but I don't know if it makes sense. I mean, you could put commercial there, its own commercial, but I don't know how you would. Housing didn't make any sense to me. I mean, they had like walkways to, or Coles would be, I mean, it was a whole thing they had proposed, but.
Well, the property that had, the Swartzel property that has it, they just proposed a 3-story condos over by the train, out of the train station.
Oh, they did, really?
Which property is it?
Well,
The old Swartzels from Hazlet, right by Hazlet train station.
That empty lot.
Oh, it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
It's a little
Right next-
deli and
Yeah,
the,
Across the street from the deli.
yeah,
It used to be Swartzel, it used to be
Right,
feed
okay,
and all that
okay.
stuff, years and years and years ago. And they just proposed a 3-story condos over there to Hazlet.
yeah, what's next? It's convenient to the train station.
yeah, it's right there.
Another property that's available is Bomber's property. You know where that is?
Carol?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's in trouble and she needs to sell it.
I thought she's.
Been true for 10 years.
Yeah, I know. But I've been trying to find her a buyer. And now that you've preserved the open space. the
Next to it,
98
yeah, that's even
next
makes it
to
make it more valuable.
And across the street is county property, that would be a nice piece to preserve and provide trail connectivity.
That is probably not on the list. It has bounced on and off
Oh, it's
for
on
political
it's on-
reasons.
It's on this one.
It's on that one, yeah, that didn't have it, but in terms of those lists, that's a good example of one that was on and off.
I thought she was building there. I thought she.
She had sold one lot and
Two lots.
somebody was, 2 lots?
Two lots.
And somebody was gonna build, they cleared and nothing ever happened.
It's, she had 14 acres, she sold off about 11, but she needs to sell the 11. And that's a good parcel for preservation and trail connectivity.
You writing that down, Bob?
I'm writing as fast as I can, you guys are talking a lot.
Her asking price is 1.1 million,
Okay.
which is fair, because we just did Callan and it's the same price per acre.
Is that egg suitable or not?
Is it what?
Suitable for egg?
Yeah. It could, you guys just pulled the farmland assessment on it because she doesn't grow anything anymore, so her taxes went up.
Oh. I didn't know that.
But
Okay.
anyway, I'm talking to her, but if you have an interest, let me know.
Yeah. I mean, it's, of course, listen, I want to preserve as much as we can. But we have to look at priorities and what makes sense. I'm thinking, I just look at what's coming down. One of the reasons why I asked last night about, and I brought this up, is because the judge that's coming in, Judge Grasso, has, and I've spoken to numerous affordable housing attorneys throughout the state. She has little tolerance for towns who want to delay their settling their affordable housing. And she's thrown, like literally, not, figuratively speaking, she's thrown the books at towns that try and push this off. And I don't want to, that's why I was like, we these numbers are so good, we have to take this.
So the plan you adopted last
Last
night
night.
would be acceptable to her, you think?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But it's the fair share accepted it, courtmaster approves of it, the current judge approves of it, so 207 was a number that I could swallow. But the original number was 450, we were originally, when I first got on the board, it was 600, then we went down to 454. I'm looking at like Hazlet, I'm looking at Middletown, I'm looking at Colts Neck, which is almost 900.
To sidetrack from the
Yeah.
discussion here, but since you mentioned those numbers, I looked over them again this morning. The one thing that struck me of the changes that occurred from a year ago was with regard to the Middle Road property, which is now proposed as a 100% affordable.
Correct, senior housing, yeah.
See, and is it senior?
Well, it's gonna be.
It's a mix.
Mix, yeah, but it's
But
senior.
that, Andy did mention that this was being done with some certain financing.
Yes, they have an
Is that
incentive,
new?
yeah.
Because that apparently wasn't in the plan a year ago. And to me, that factor made this plan so much more attractive, because the Middle Road thing is now, instead of being 20% affordable and you only get credit for 20 units, you get 100%
Yeah.
of the units count.
I
And that's why the total number of units the town has to build came down dramatically because of that.
The language of the tax rebates that they were getting, there was one that was 9%, one that was 5%. I forget the math on it, but this unit was, because it's 100% affordable, they got it higher. It was eligible. It still has to be approved, but for the higher rate.
Sure, but apparently that that way of doing things
Yeah.
wasn't in last year's plan.
Yeah, I mean.
And that
listen-
made an enormous difference in the overall impact.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be honest, I hope these things never get built. I hope they never get built, but you have to, I'm saying, well, it's true, I don't wanna see them built, but we have to settle.
You have to settle
They have to settle, you have to accept it. I know it can't be, I know, it's not politically correct to say that, but it's true. I don't wanna see more encroachment, I don't wanna see more building, I didn't want these homes to come and be built here, but it's true, I don't wanna, listen, I don't wanna put more stress on our police, our fire, our EMS. You think it's gonna be easy for we have all volunteer squads? I know you can't say it, but I don't, it doesn't matter that listen, I have nothing
Public
against
record.
affordable housing, but I have nothing against affordable housing, nothing. Oh, yeah, Brown's video. I'm not opposed to affordable housing, I just am against being forced to build in locations that
Plus, if you don't do it, then the builder's remedy comes in.
right, and then they can build whatever they want.
Yeah.
That's what bothered me the most about this, is that if we didn't settle, they could start builders' remedy suits, and they would bypass our zoning and planning board, we would lose all control, and in certain properties, they could build 5-story buildings, 6-story buildings, they could jam some of these properties with as many houses or apartments as they would like, and that would be devastating.
But the reason for preserving
But
open
these
space has
spaces-
nothing to do with affordable housing. It has
No.
everything to do with regular development.
Correct. Regular development, we just want
And
to,
preserving the
listen,
street
I want to
corridor.
maintain,
Right.
I want to keep the bucolic, I like the look of the town, I want to keep that, I don't think there's something wrong with saying that. I like what we have.
Somebody was telling me that Works still has an affordable housing
They
obligation.
do, they have until 2021, July until 2021 to
That's
exercise
between
3
you and
options.
them, right? The town and you?
Yeah, they can either pay us the money, find a spot in town, or put them in the building. Well,
Well, in the building was gonna happen when they were gonna have some clinics and some assisted living in the building, but they never figured out how to make it work given the size of the
But
building.
they're doing so well marketing it for high tech,
well, that's up to the Somerset, that's up to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, we tried in July to try and include them in on this plan, and they had a couple of properties they were looking at, and we didn't dovetail on the plan, so they went before the judge, and they said, in the redevelopment agreement, they have until 2021 to complete their obligation, whatever that means, and I think the language was a little vague, so they can either, we interpreted it as they would have to be completed by that date, but I think the judge said that they could make their decision by that date. So they're pushing the ball down the road, so it's fine, that's their right.
But you're counting their numbers, right?
No,
No,
numbers are off the
no,
chart.
no, their numbers are separate.
Separate, oh, okay.
I think their number's 34.
So you don't get credit with the,
Nope.
They're for a future round.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the way Andy described it, it's off the table. The obligation is still there, but it'll be addressed later.
So, right now, I think, Chris, I have all this information. We have to, I'll talk to the mayor, I'll talk in the new year, in January, we'll start, I'll talk about getting the, Open Space Advisory Committee to, we don't have one. I think he said we did, but I think he was confusing it with the form. Let's do that, let's try and get that group merged into here, so we can have some control over that. And then start prioritizing a list of properties that we think would be best to, are most important to preserve. Let's find out what funds we have available through grants. I know FOHOS has some money, I know the county has some money, and you got a couple of dollars there, so we can do that.
And it's unclear to me what the state of the open space tax is.
I mean, well,
I've been unclear about it for years.
what's unclear?
In that, how much it raises is simple. It's just to multiply the assessed value by the tax rate. But what it gets used for, and to what extent it's being used for open space bonding and the like versus anything else, has long been unclear to me.
It's purposely unclear because it's a town decision how to spend that money.
Correct.
As long as it's for ag, open space,
But
recreation.
where the trail got muddy is that some of the original bonds that were funded out of it, which were used for the Chase acquisition or things like that, got refinanced. So you can't say, we're paying bond A for Chase, bond B for F&F out of that money, because the money's got, to my mind, commingled and confused. So to me, there was not a clear trace, this money is being used for. And there is extra, or there is not enough, or in some years there was claim there was not enough, but some of those bonds have been paid off now. It's been 18 years. So, at least from what I hear from Jeanette, there's a little bit, but what a little bit means, and next year there might be a little more, or what gets paid off when and how, it's not clean. And then, last night she made mention about something with regard to the F&F funding, that the bonds had never gotten issued, and they had to go back and redo something else.
She said it last night?
Yeah,
I don't recall that.
yeah.
I don't recall talking about F&F last night. Did we talk about F&F?
It would, no,
I
somebody
don't remember, I
asked,
might have been asleep by then.
somebody, it may have been
That's
Barbara
okay.
asked about what certain funding things were that were in part of the bills list or something like that, and why something was being refinanced.
I'll talk to Jeanette.
Yeah,
I'll
but
ask her.
it's clear from the statute that you can't commingle open space tax. The bonds have to be separate.
Separate, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but also at some point in time, some of that money was used for maintenance.
That's okay too.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong, but just to understand how much money you got available and what's free, you need to see the picture.
Yeah, so that you know how much you have to afford to buy
Yeah.
new open space. And you can always refinance too. You know.
Although interest rates are going up, so.
0.25%, what they want today, something like that. All right, let's.
So who's the new mayor? You're gonna be talking to yourself?
No.
I'm kidding.
No. Please, that's a whole nother.
I guess we'll find out in prime time, right?
I'll tell you, politics is a lot of fun. Dealing with a lot of complicated personalities, a lot of different people.
So I get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, it's not easy. Listen, I would love to be mayor one day, but it's not. It's a full-time job.
Yeah, it is.
It's a full-time, thankless job. And I see what I saw what Eric went through. I saw what Greg went through. I've seen what Cortelli went through. I mean, it's just nonstop. I mean, I have a young family. I have kids. I have a business to
So
run.
you just told us who the mayor's gonna be.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We will see. Come January 2nd, we'll.
Are we at full complement here in this committee?
I think.
Commissioner?
Well, we're gonna make Marcy. We're gonna make Marcy a full member instead of an alternate. You want to be on, Ralph?
Let me think about it.
Come on, Ralph. You can do it. You have a wealth of knowledge.
It's once a month.
know.
Ralph
I've been
knows
around.
Ralph knows where all the bodies are buried.
Jeez. You know, people are gonna be thinking that there's something going on.
It's a figure of speech. He knows where. Come on.
Someone's gonna pick that little snippet off
I
the
know,
internet,
right?
and the next thing you know,
No,
there's
but
gonna
Ralph.
be this big
listen,
article.
Ralph, listen.
It's history, the history of
Yes.
some of these things matters.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Why reinvent the wheel?
I agree. Listen,
So therefore you should join.
you know, I listen. I remember asking one of my teachers in college, "What's the biggest impediment to understanding the past?" And he gave me one of those answers that was obvious. He said, Mike, the biggest impediment to understanding the past is we know their future, right? We know their outcome. We know that decision A leads to consequence B. We know that if you do this, that will happen. And when I look at these decisions we're making today, you know, one of the best ways to predict the future and how one of these decisions that we're making now is, do you have to study the past? You have to study the history. Why were certain decisions made? And you have to go back and read. And if you don't have the people that were in the rooms when those decisions were being made,
You'll make the same.
you make the same mistakes over again. So I think it is important to, I mean, that's why I think you're an invaluable resource, Chris. I mean, that's why I love having you here. Because you've been here all the time. It's like, you know, on Holmdel First Aid, like, you know, I call up captains and from that were in the back in the 80s when we were trying to do bylaw changes. I like, why did we do this? Why was the squad, what prompted the squad to make this dumb bylaw change? And because then there was a reason. And now I say, oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
But it's also
it's
a question
important.
of having been around for a while and having looked at some of these properties and walked some of them, that you don't become familiar with the properties just by looking at the map. And, you know, and you can't look, you try to look at them all in one day, forget it.
No, I mean,
It becomes a total fog, but, you know, let's take a look at that one and see, what are we talking about?
We have some
And you
very-
become familiar with them.
Listen, we have some really beautiful pieces of property in this town, and I'm grateful for the work that was done before I got here, because I love walking the chase track back there. I love, it's like heaven on earth back there. I love it, and I don't want to see more growth, and I don't want to see the town ruined. So it's important, and you know, Chris, you guys know how the inner workings were. You know how to navigate the minefield so you don't step into these pits that get you trapped. You avoid the weeds.
Right.
And that's important. So think about it, Ralph.
What's the status of the MOU on the land swap? Have both sides signed yet?
I think it was signed. I believe it was.
Well, although, I guess it was a month ago when it came up and it was on the consent agenda to authorize the signing of it. What was not clear to me was in the subsequent discussion, Fran Mullen implied there are some additional steps. That is, the agreement is an agreement in principle, but that it requires additional approvals, in particular for
Yeah,
DEP.
DEP.
And so that, you know, some environmental
Yeah,
analysis
not all
needs to be
13
done.
acres are usable, right? For those
And so that, you know, you need a wetlands assessment on the 13 acres and all of that. So it was not completely clear to me just what the steps are. And even though the agreement is signed, it doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. Because some of those other things we may find a glitch.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that I heard that there were some minor things that had to be done, but that was, I guess those are the.
I mean, the one thing is I looked it up afterwards. It's not necessarily common knowledge, but all properties, including not tax exempt properties, are assessed by the assessor.
Okay.
And the 13 acres is assessed at, as I recall, the number like 1.5 million. The 114 acres is something like 12 or 13 million.
But if the parties agree, it's no, never mind.
I don't know.
No, yeah,
I don't know that piece
I
of
thought
the
it was
process.
that's,
So
yeah.
that, to me, would say
Definitely
somebody
swap.
might debate that that's an appropriate swap.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, if you're, I get, that's a subjective question.
I don't know what all the steps are and who needs to sign off and what not needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's.
I know that there's a lot of due diligence and environmental studies that have to be done. I mean, you know, obviously everybody's gotta get surveys, they gotta get titles, they gotta get, you know, same thing if you're gonna buy a house, you go through all this. You know, you like just personally, me, you.
Mhm.
All right, well,
I'm sure the surveys exist because, you know, when you buy property as a municipality or a county.
Well, in the case of the Cross Farm piece, I'm sure that existed, but In the case of the one across the street there, from the tax map, it's not clear to me just where the property boundaries are and how it was acquired by the county whenever. So to what extent that's a separable tax lot?
Got it.
Somebody will have to do a title
All,
search.
yeah. All questions will,
Usually when the county.
Bonnie, that's why you
acquires
make the big
something,
bucks.
they have clear title.
I don't make it, I just do the work.
Yeah,
no, well,
I'm the worker bee around here.
yeah, I know. Uh-huh. All right, what else do we have?
That's all we have.
That's it? I gotta eat dinner, I'm starving. Been a long
well,
day.
the one piece that was, wanted to follow up with you, Chris, with regard to the trails.
Mm.
You had mentioned some things earlier that we didn't talk about. Were you suggesting that there are additional pieces of trails that aren't on the master plan map?
They're on the master plan map.
Okay, it's not as if there are pieces missing. No, they're on the master plan map, but they don't exist.
They don't exist, they don't exist.
The properties aren't owned and et cetera yet.
Which trails are,
That was the hypothesized trail network.
Right.
well, there's, the Horace Greenway Nature Trail is there.
Yeah, I mean, there are pieces, and there are other,
This,
there- that shows the piece going through the art center, it
Yeah,
shows the
that's-
piece going
that's,
through the.
that trail is there, you just can't walk it.
You can unless you get caught.
Right, yeah. The other ones are all there.
We did it last June, but okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
The trail that's from the TD Bank,
That one's, needs another bridge. but
Another
it's-
bridge to nowhere?
Well, TD built a bridge which ends in a puddle.
Right. It's a, yeah.
So one needs some additional board walking or something to make that viable.
Can't, remember? We tried that years ago, we wanted to connect the bridge to the trail back there, but it's a wetlands.
Well, you need permits.
You need permits.
You can
Yeah,
get
yeah,
permits. It's a little.
Minor problem.
Yeah,
Right.
There's a general permit for
probably
trail
will get it.
construction.
It's a-
You're just limited to the area of disturbance you can do at one time under that general permit.
It's just
and
something
you have
that
to
nobody
install it.
wanted, no scout
Yeah.
wanted to have to
No.
deal with that.
No, I mean, they did do there's a bridge back there that they redid. One of the scouts redid that bridge that leads to there's a cool open area back there where there was a bald eagle back there.
Mhm.
There's a bird, little bird area. All right, what else?
Okay.
Was
Yeah,
that?
I was just a question, all right, I had thought you were implying that there might be something that was missing, but no, it's a question of just trying to continue to
continue the
develop.
trail.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. What else?
You can make a motion.
I'll make a motion, I gotta eat dinner, I'm starving, it's been a long day.
We have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?